Today on House of Decline, it's me, Alex, and Steven. And we have a very special subject for our 50th episode. We're going to talk about a theory that we've been throwing about for a while, but I want to make a formal episode about it because I think it's the Space Jam: A New Legacy trailer has really sparked my imagination on this one. And this is a concept called the Hearts-ification of all media. The video game Kingdom Hearts is ultimately about an evil man trying to harness a dark power by destroying the boundaries that once separated disparate pieces of intellectual property. By using darkness, which in the game is basically a type of chaotic energy, the villain of the series, Xehanort, seeks to bridge worlds, collect the hearts of their inhabitants, and gain access to a supreme source of power so that he can make the world by his design. It is established from the very beginning of the first game that the opening of bridges between worlds destabilizes the universe at large, and the use of darkness in these worlds hollows them out and leaves them as empty husks. Knowing that these crossovers are harmful, we, the gamers, still want these worlds to be connected because that's why we bought this stupid fucking game in the first place. The perverse nerd boner of seeing Cloud from Final Fantasy VII talk sass to James Woods as Hades. We know our desire to see our IP interact is driving the larger universe to ruin, yet we persist in doing so because for some reason, people are innately attracted to pairings of different media properties. In Kingdom Hearts, they view this as friendship. But if we ignore Sora's foolish, non-materialist analysis, we can see it for what it really is. The joy of understanding references. Since Kingdom Hearts' extremely profitable debut in 2004, there has been an exponential escalation of gigantic, orgiastic media crossover properties. Recent examples of this include Wreck-It Ralph 1 and 2, the Lego Movie and all subsequent Lego movies, the Emoji Movie, Fortnite, Ready Player One, the Marvel and DC cinematic universes, and the most recent example that sparked this episode, Space Jam: A New Legacy, which despite eschewing rape skunk Pepe Le Pew, saw fit to include references to the Droogs from A Clockwork Orange, a beloved Warner Brothers media property. I do not believe that the creators of these crossover properties know it, but I think their decisions were profoundly influenced by the success of Kingdom Hearts, showing that not only product synergy could be monetized, but could create this cult-like fan devotion. So this is what this episode is about, the Kingdom Hearts-ification of all media. And I first want to start talking about earlier crossover intellectual properties than Kingdom Hearts.
Certainly.
Yes.
Let us start with 1943's Frankenstein and the Wolfman.
That's that's very funny you mentioned that because just off the top of my dome in my notes, I wrote Abbott and Costello meet the werewolf, which was also a thing. But yeah, no, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Well, it's the first example on the Wikipedia page for crossover. So that's why I know it, because I just looked it up.
Oh, there you go. But that's very true. The Universal movie monsters back in the day, they had all these individual Universal movie monsters, and they said, hey, what if we put Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi in a movie, and, product synergy, right? And, those movies are okay. I'm sure, did they make profits back in the day? I'm sure they made profits back in the day.
Oh,
but it's like no
much.
one really, culture wasn't centered around the Frankenstein meets the Wolfman in a way that, it eventually became. Like, these crossover events, I don't know how they were seen as people back in the day, but it didn't seem like these dominated the cultural conversation the way they do today.
Well, they might have. We don't have...
They absolutely might have.
I mean, we don't have a record of what everyday people were talking about, but I would imagine that after those movies came out, everyday people were probably talking about them quite a bit.
People were talking about the Frankenstein and the Wolfman cinematic universe, you think?
Yeah, do you think the Frankenstein could beat the Wolfman? And then someone else would be like, no way.
I guess Freddy versus Jason eventually came to that. Yeah, those conversations. I think that Frankenstein. I think that Frankenstein could beat the Wolfman because I imagine biting through Frankenstein would be tough, and Frankenstein could use his brute strength in order to punch the Wolfman.
But the Wolfman has speed. He has such great speed.
That's true. But other examples, television crossovers happened all the time, literally all the time. The most, so much so that, have you heard of the Tommy Westfall theory?
No.
Okay, so the hospital drama Saint Elsewhere ended with, it turns out that the whole show was imagined by an autistic child in a snow globe.
I heard about that on like a VH1 Remember This type show.
Yeah, it's a Remember This thing. So yeah, that was the ending to Saint Elsewhere. And so
wait,
but the thing is, a lot of Taint Elsewhere. But a lot of Taint Elsewhere characters crossed over to different media franchises. And those media franchises crossed over to other media franchises, which means that all of these shows are related and they all exist in the mind of an autistic child, which is, this theory. But I think just the formation of this theory shows that there's this deep nerd instinct to want to see all your favorite guys from different media properties get together. Like you're playing with action figures. Like you have all your little action figures and you're putting them all together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do that a lot.
So,
I used to do that all the time.
Exactly. It's a thing. I don't know what drives us to do it, but it's definitely something that people recognize. And I think do you remember like that PSA for where all the cartoons from Saturday morning beat marijuana?
I would, just as an interjection, it comes from the innate Bonapartism that is in all of us, and that is why little children like to arrange soldiers in a row. It's just evidence. It's just more evidence that Napoleon Bonaparte had the right idea. Anyway, what did you say?
Toussaint Louverture.
Yeah.
So what I was saying,
chaos.
But so the other things that previous to Kingdom Hearts that I can think of that were big crossover things was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which featured all of the media properties right at the end, together, all of it, like Looney Tunes and Woody Woodpecker and Hanna-Barbera and Disney all together. I don't know how the fuck they did that. I don't know what the licensing was on that. Like, was it protected because it was satire or something? But they got the actual voice. That's a whole episode unto itself. How the fuck did they license that shit?
Well, one thing I want to bring up as I'm examining the Wikipedia page is that Saint Elsewhere is actually a retroactive crossover. So what you were talking about is that it made 12 different programs retroactively become crossovers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just through their connections through Saint Elsewhere.
Right. That's
in the same way that the Simpsons universe technically also exists in the X-Files universe.
Well, that would, so I would want to know what, like, that seems like there's some semantic in there, some semantic meaning that may need to be kind of examined. What does it mean to be a member of the same universe?
Yeah, but that's the instinct for nerds is to make them a member of the same universe. I think that's what the Tommy Westfall theory demonstrates, that there's this deep instinct.
Is it because
nerds to go crazy about this shit?
Is it because nerds also feel like they're a child trapped in the brain of an autistic person or something?
I don't know about that. I think it's just because you like seeing your guys together and you wonder. It's the exact same instinct of like, could Frankenstein fight the werewolf? Could Superman outrun the Flash?
Oh, well, I mean, I never would allow universe mixing with my action figures. All of my action figures would only play with other action figures from the same universe. That's a prerequisite. The Army guys played with the Army guys. The Batman and Robins played with the Batman and Robins. They did not interact. I would get very angry at anyone who would try to make the universes collide. Like, who are you, some god?
Yeah, what is this, Kingdom Hearts? What is this, Space Jam? And okay, yeah, the other precursor, I mean, in comics, there were big crossover events between comics like Crisis on Infinite Earths and Age of Apocalypse and shit like that. And these were always like huge, once-in-a-lifetime events that drastically changed the continuity of all the comics around them. And I guess the comics industry is really sort of also the proto-template for how to create this massive universe of different intersecting properties.
Yeah, I agree. Because when DC did Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was specifically, I think, to try to have like a coherent system that would make them more money, rather than it being based in, oh, wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah.
It's not because it's cool. It's because it's a money-making thing for DC in Crisis on Infinite Earths. And that's, I mean, yeah, crossover events have always been a money-making thing. And you know, it's about brand synergy. It's always been about brand synergy right from, you know, its very beginning, from Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. No, sometimes it is cool because we identified that we do it as children with our toys. We do crossover events like tea parties. Alice in Wonderland Tea Party Time is kind of like a big crossover event.
Well, yeah, because you ascribe different archetypes, and you like you like find pieces of yourself in different characters from different media, and bringing them all together is like you're bringing all the little pieces of yourself you invested in these properties together. So yeah, I think there is some sort of sick reason why people like doing that. And
it's sick. It's depraved.
It's depraved. I judge you.
Yeah.
And then the original Space Jam movie, of course, which has the crazy combination of Looney Tunes and just the 90s NBA vibe, which isn't really like a media property, just like it was a vibe. They just had 90s basketball players.
Yeah, well, Phil Jackson and that little short troll that ran the Bulls, I forget his name. There's like the manager. Phil Jackson was the general manager, and then like there's one guy above him who's like a little troll. Listeners, if you remember the name of the little troll that helped put together the 90s Bulls, you can email houseofdecline@gmail.com. Okay? Just remind me what that is. Thank you.
I mean, the Space Jam was also huge because of its soundtrack, which was huge. I Believe I Can Fly and Get Up and Slam, Come On and Jam dominated the airways. It was a true cultural sensation.
Yeah.
A great end of history moment. The original Space Jam movie. A great Fukuyama moment. But it was still light entertainment. Like, it sold a lot of merch, but there's no serious fan base for the original Space Jam movie. I mean, there is, but they're like not as much as what Kingdom Hearts would come to be.
Or Ghostbusters, maybe?
Yeah, but was Ghostbusters a crossover franchise, though?
Well, okay. Yeah.
Like, what's a crossover franchise that has as much devotion as Kingdom Hearts before?
I retract.
Yeah, that's my basic argument, because what made Kingdom Hearts different is that it's a deeply spiritual game in a weird way. You starts out, literally the tutorial level is you're in a cathedral of Disney characters, and it has this beautiful choral music written by the great video game composer Yoko Shimomura. And that's also like Yoko Shimomura, the reason why people love this game is because she does a lot of the heavy lifting on the soundtrack.
Yeah. Well, I remember that when I visited you, you played it, and I remember how it's a very spiritual experience for both of us.
But yeah, it's this anime shit. And anime culture, with anime culture comes otaku culture, which is that sort of inspired cash cow devotion of just being able to continuously sell figurines to these people. Which is, you know, Kingdom Hearts has shifted 32 million units in video games alone, but more than that is its merch that proves to be. There's no, you know, dedicated Space Jam merch market. The Kingdom Hearts merch is endless and repeating and endlessly replicable. which is why I think it is, more culturally resonant. And Kingdom Hearts was really the first to do two separate huge properties bringing together like two things that nobody would have ever thought. The only precursor was really Space Jam, which was Looney Tunes and NBA vibe. Who'd have thought? But Final Fantasy and Disney is fucking weird. It's fucking... Why would that have ever happened? And you know why it happened? I actually pulled it from the Wikipedia page. The story is very funny. So Hashimoto and Sakaguchi were the two Final Fantasy producers, and they were trying to make a game with the freedom of movement in 3 dimensions like Super Mario 64, but lamented that the only characters as popular as Disney's could rival a Mario game. Tetsuya Nomura, who's the director of Kingdom Hearts and the writer of it, overhearing their conversation, volunteered to lead the project, and the two producers agreed to let him direct. A chance meeting between Hashimoto and a Disney executive in an elevator, Square and Disney had previously worked in the same building in Japan, allowed Hashimoto to pitch the idea directly to Disney. And that chance meeting led to this crazy inbred media landscape that we have today. And so, basically, from its birth, it was about... how can we move the most units? Who's the most recognizable possible character? It's Disney.
Something that strikes me is that, this only works when we allow large companies to amass a lot of product, like intellectual product. For example, does Pepsi exist in the Coke universe? No, because they're competitors. They're not.
You just pitched Soda Kingdom Hearts, my friend.
And so no, but this is the crossover events are bleeding into other things like fast food restaurants. Mm-hmm. Now that you have fast food restaurants interacting with other fast food restaurants on Twitter, they're doing crossover events. And
yes, you're right.
You started seeing combination fast food restaurants. So, I'm going down to the Popeyes Taco Bell. I'm going over to the McDonald's. What's the fish one? The fish.
Well, the combination restaurants are owned by the same company usually.
Well, right. Well, exactly. That's why we got to stop mega corporations from buying all the properties, because
yeah, exactly, we gotta break up big fast food, we gotta break up Yum brands and force KFC and Taco Bell to compete independently.
Yeah, I mean, how would Walmart, because if we could figure out how Walmart could use this idea, we could probably become millionaires and work for Walmart. How could Walmart do a crossover event?
The Walmart needs to do a crossover event with the other. What they need to do is,
with
and you'll
Amazon.
see this shit all the. Okay, no, there's already a model for this. It's funny you say that, because a frequent genre of fan art in the internet is anthropomorphizing a company, mm-hmm. and then having them interact. You can see a billion things where they'll draw a cute version of, this is what Facebook would be like if he were a cute boy, mm-hmm. and this is what Snopes would be like because she's a sneaky girl, and there's that entire genre of stuff. So yeah, you could have them interact. In fact, you do have that in the Emoji Movie. You do have this personified brand interaction of tech companies.
Yeah, I predict we'll see more of that. We might see, I don't know if it'll happen with Amazon or Walmart, but I think in 10, 15 years you could see once in a lifetime event. Amazon and Walmart are finally going to produce stuff together, and you'll be able to go to one store called Amazomart.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, everyone will be living indoors 100% of the time. No mm-hmm. more going outside because it's a wasteland. Yeah. The trash comes up to your doorstep.
But yeah, so before, what I am arguing why Kingdom Hearts is different is because that it's not just spirited, but the idea of having heft. That this crossover event means something, and it also metatextually means something. It's not just, I think, Frankenstein and the werewolf, people appreciated it as a novelty. It was fun, but nobody was like, oh my god, I love the Frankenstein and werewolf universe. Actually, they probably were. They probably were writing fan fiction back then. But not to the same interconnected degree. And of course, a lot of this is because Kingdom Hearts was on the cusp of the internet, the 2005 internet. Mm-hmm. So it allowed memes about it and references to it, and it allowed it to spread. It became part of this early 4chan culture, these anime boards that created this sort of cascading further reference culture that further informed the idea that what we really want is this language, this idiomatic language of references in our culture. Which brings us to our next point. So that was my first point, Stephen, which was that Kingdom Hearts represents a shift from previous crossover events by infusing it with more sort of heft, inspiring a greater devoted fan base. And sort of movies that followed after, or like crossover movies that followed after, like the Lego Movie, which is beloved, or like Ready Player One, which is filled with the same sort of heft, or like even the fucking Wreck-It Ralph movies, which contain, that same sort of emotional Pixar manipulation type thing. And especially like the Marvel universe as well. It's filled with that. It gives this idea that not only is the brand crossover, synergistic and fun, it also means something very deeply to you. There is this, almost spiritual element to the fact that the brands are crossing over. And you know what it is like? You know what who had a great commentary on this is South Park's Imagination Land.
Yeah, I remember Imagination. Was that the Member Berry time? No.
No, that was Member Berries came way after, but that's also part of it. That'll figure into the next part of my argument.
I remember Imagination Land. Yeah, where everything from your imagination is, and people start imagining terrible stuff.
Yeah, our imagination, or all the bad imagined things are coming over. But even that, people like that episode because South Park had bothered to animate all the pop culture references, and it's fun seeing them all together.
Right. That's interesting. I forgot about that one. That is a good ep.
But that episode is also metatextually relevant to why people love crossover shit so much. Why? Because it's part of our shared cultural memory, in our shared cultural language. All of these characters do exist together in that weird imagination space. So. In movies, which are corporations reflecting our dreams back to us, it is sort of a cheap thrill to see them all together in that same sort of landscape of cultural language that we have. That forms the part of my next argument. We love references. Part 2. We love references so fucking much.
Yeah, of course.
It's everything in our culture.
It's because that's how we learn how to speak.
Yeah.
It's a series of references that then we learn how to speak. So we love seeing references.
Yeah. As a symbolic creatures that love language.
Well, when you encounter a reference, you're like, ooh, potentially there's some new meaning. And we're always searching for the truth. Capital T. Mm-hmm. And so that's why these are like little snacks for our dopamine that make us fat and unwieldy mentally.
Yes. And especially since the 90s, where reference-heavy media became super vogue. And, you can find it in the works of Quentin Tarantino and Joss Whedon and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and especially our beloved Simpsons, which is, a ton. It has this groundbreaking reference humor, which was, I guess, informed by Saturday Night Live before it. But really, the Simpsons did homage and the use of movies in order to, movie references in order to get across a joke better than anyone else had ever done it. And so much so that Simpsons references form our cultural language as well. So we're constantly making references to something that the Simpsons had referenced. And our only image of something that had previously existed is not the thing of itself, but the Simpsons reference to it. But we basically know it still. So, yeah. I'm just saying that, yeah, the cascading reference culture is something that has accelerated since the 90s.
It would strike me as interesting to compare The Simpsons with the oeuvre of Shakespeare, because Shakespeare was incredibly referential. And that's like, also, he kind of created language for a generation and references for a generation. He was extremely referential. We just don't get the references today, because they're too far removed. It's not actually very hard to get the references. You just have to read a little bit of it. It's better actually to watch it, and then you'll be doing fine.
Do you think your appreciation of Shakespeare is better if you get the references?
Yeah. It's all, and to a certain degree, it's impossible to understand unless you get to understand the references.
But see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You have a richer understanding of the text if you understand where it operates historically and contextually.
Yeah.
And so, and like you just said, that understanding produces a little dopamine hit. And so the producers of these crossover events understand that just these shallow references produce these dopamine hits. And we can keep just cramming them into movies as much as possible, creating this visual noise of references. Ready Player One was the most crass example of that so far. And it's so funny that it was directed by Steven Spielberg, too.
It's funny on the list of crossovers because they go through the crossovers, and every crossover is a character where the movie is the name of that character. So it's like, what? They got Predator from Predator, and Terminator from Terminator, and Rambo from Rambo, and RoboCop from RoboCop?
What was a RoboCop crossover movie?
Let's see.
Who did RoboCop crossover with?
I think Mortal Kombat.
What? That's cool. I mean, yeah, in the new Mortal Kombat video game, which is also a Warner Brothers property, they have Rambo and Terminator and
well, there's going to be
RoboCop
a new Mortal Kombat movie, and it's going to be rated R.
Yeah, people are looking forward. People in fact, a movie that just came out that people tend to really like is a crossover movie, and it's Godzilla vs. Kong. Which is
that good? Did you see it? I didn't care.
I haven't seen it, but people seem to like it because people are saying it's fun, dumb action movie. And generally, those new kaiju movies done by what's his name, Witwer, they're not bad. Like people have said, they're very tolerable series of movies. Don't make you feel bad about the state of movies.
Well, I don't ever feel bad about the state of movies because there's so many good movies coming out all the time, just not from Hollywood, so it's fine.
Like Space Jam: A New Legacy,
like the A24 movies or whatever.
We all like A24. What's good? I haven't seen any fucking movies this year. I watched Possessor recently. Possessor was good.
No, I haven't really watched much. I haven't watched much TV or movies at all the whole pandemic. It's weird. I've just been on the computer.
But yeah, you reference Shakespeare. I would like to also reference Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra, the famous episode Darmok from Star Trek: The Next Generation, where Picard and an alien captain have to do some fun ritual on a planet where it turns out the alien talks in only idioms about their heroes, who are similar to Gilgamesh in this case.
Yeah. The thing about that episode, so they have this phrase, Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra, and they're trying to figure out what it means. Why didn't they zoom in on the word at, circle it, and then just point at it? Because that is where you would find, that's the only word in there that doesn't have a idiomatic meaning, right? At. And I guess the thing is, I guess they would then define at using another idiom, like it's crabopple badopple. It's Krabopple-Badopple.
It's Krabopple.
It's Miss Krabopple.
It's Darmok and Jalad, Miss Krabopple, Tanagra.
We should try to speak like that more. Like, when we describe our relationship, we should be like, it's Seymour Skinner and Mrs. Krabopple.
People do talk like that, though. That's, I'm not coming up with any Simpsons references organically right now, but just, posting memes of a pop culture thing. The Dr. Evil where it going right,
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun one. I like that one. That's always good. Austin Powers. That was a movie. See, that was also a very reference-heavy movie.
I imagine the crossover potential there. Holy moly.
The Austin Powers. You should do the whole Mike Myers cinematic universe, including Michael Myers from Halloween.
Well, I want to see Austin Powers crossover with the Naked Gun.
Dig up Leslie Nielsen.
We need to get
hologram Leslie Nielsen.
No. How much you want to? I bet you this. Naked Gun coming back 2025. Steve Carell.
OJ. OJ's back, baby.
We should rehabilitate OJ. He's a pretty good actor.
Yeah, he's fine. He only got two of us.
Two of us? You got one of you, right? I guess.
Yeah, I got one of me.
One of you and one of me. A white person and a Jewish person.
Yeah, Jews aren't white. we aren't. Sorry. No, we are.
Hey, you can be whatever you want, man.
Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra, Oron and Goofy fighting Cerberus in the underworld. And the thing is, I think people are aware of reference language, and the same people are aware that irony coats our interactions. And people know that it's sort of toxic. People know that it's sort of hard to escape, and it kind of alienates you from talking sincerely and with your own words. I mean, it is a way of communicating, and it's not a bad way of communicating, but I do think there is some sort of regret on being so dependent on these cultural references in order to, break bread with people. So, I don't know, or there is this semblance of cultural regret, at least with these big orgiastic properties. Like, why do you think these big orgiastic properties are received so poorly by the intelligentsia, for example, who see them as this crass commercialized thing, which, that's me too. I see them as being exponentially somehow more crass than the original Space Jam, just by virtue of jamming as many properties as possible in there.
So this is for things where the elite critics don't like it, but it has a high score for the audience appreciation.
I think that was Ready Player One, right? Like audiences loved it and critics hated it. It made bank, and critics hated it. Critics saw it as this
critics
crass,
don't want to let
exploitative thing.
Critics don't want to let people enjoy things. They don't. That would, because if people enjoyed things too much, they wouldn't bother to read their stupid little articles, being like, it's not interesting, and there's no art, and it's just a bunch of people blowing stuff up.
I went to Columbia.
So,
but Ready Player One does suck. Lego Movie doesn't suck, but it's also this very sort of crass orgiastic brand thing.
Yeah,
but
the
it's
Lego
written
Movie
very well, so we forgive it.
Yeah, the Lego Movie's an example of a good movie that's also like a crossover cash grab.
Yeah,
that's a pretty darn good movie. I liked it. I wouldn't mind watching it again one day. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'm gonna have to watch all of the same movies as you soon.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Yeah, you're gonna be a dad, so you're gonna have to watch all the baby movies.
I'm gonna watch all the baby movies. Oh, well, we have a lot in common now.
Hey, kid, my gay friend told me about all these.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna call her. Hey, kid.
That's the proper way. That's in Dr. Spock. All right, so meme culture is this especially metastasized form of reference humor, and it defines our every waking interaction.
Referencing things like the whole categorization of the saints in the Catholic Church throughout all of history. Like, you could, in the Middle Ages, you would refer to a saint, and people would just know what you were talking about. This is pointing to something like deep in us, which is why I think critics find it so enervating or aggravating when it becomes corporatized, because it's how we connect to each other, and it's like a central part of culture. And to have it be controlled by Disney is horrible. And they're horrible, and I hope they go out of business. But
to have our very archetypes controlled by Disney, is so. You know what it also reminds me of is the Commedia dell'arte. You know, you'd have Trinculo or Pantaleano or whatever the characters were called. But the idea is that they were set stock characters that operated as sort of a shorthand, so that you could go from town to town and people would know, the guy dressed as a clown, he has these certain traits. You know, in the same way that, you know, Captain America has certain traits because of the way that he dresses. You know, the design of certain characters is supposed to be an easy way for you to understand these interacting archetypes. Because references act as cultural shorthand as well. You don't have to tell the story. The story has already been told, and you reference that story. It becomes a much easier way of conveying depth to people if people are already familiar with that character.
I would say, and part of what the elites do is not good. It's not positive, in my opinion, to trash these movies, because working class or lower class or any class people, middle class to lower class people, they enjoy this stuff, and it's not their fault that's all there is. Instead, I really think these critics should put down the pen and pick up the paintbrush. If the art out there is so terrible, why don't you contribute a little bit?
Yeah, you critics. Take that, intelligentsia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff in Ready Player One that's worth criticizing. It's
okay, but they act like there's not enough time in the day to do criticisms and art. I had to pick one.
I think, well, where you see the most saltiness with this argument about audiences versus critics is the MCU. Generally, people want, like, just leave the MCU be. We like our stuff, and it is art. You don't understand, Marty Scorsese. It is art.
Yes, not to be too referential, but leave Britney alone.
But further to my point, the Marvel fan base, the need for the Marvel fan base to insist to Marty Scorsese that their big crossover event property really is art and it really is substantial and spiritual goes to the Kingdom Hearts thing, where it's like literally a cathedral of fucking Disney characters and your little anime boy right at the beginning. You exalt these media properties as part of your pantheon, and you know, I think some people see that as sick, but you know, that's how a lot of fucking weird nerds operate.
We're getting into dork web area here. That we're getting into the intellectual dork web, because as you may and may not know, Nick Land refers to the overarching structure of our system as the cathedral, where there are crossover events between politicians and corporations. But it's all part of one big Kingdom Hearts style setup, I think, you know? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's what is Kingdom Hearts but not a negotiation between two corporations.
Yeah, it's very Landian.
I mean, yeah. That's we're relating it back to all the themes of House of Decline. We'll relate it to the hipster to fash pipeline soon. We'll get there somehow. I don't know how.
Well, the hipsters get so mad about
that's
it.
True.
They're like,
turned into fash.
We have to put all of these Marvel fans in jail.
I think probably a lot of the fash that raided the White House on 1/6 probably like the Marvel movies, I'm guessing.
Oh boy. That I don't know. Please don't sue us, Disney, for slandering your fans.
No, I'm just saying those movies are very popular.
Okay.
So I'm sure the Fash like them too. I'm sure the Fash see themselves in Captain America or whatever. You can see he's such a blank character, and because it takes such a non-political stance, anyone can put themselves onto the characters. That's the point of trying to make as much money as possible. By being as non-specific as possible, you make the most money. I think, yeah, that's also the hatred of crossover events. It is the death of specificity, too. Because it's like, literally everything is fucking here. Yeah. There's nothing. It's like a gigantic buffet.
Yep.
Where, they don't do one particular thing well, but because they have so much of it, it seems substantial.
You can always put off any character development until the next crossover event. And ultimately what ends up happening is instead of character development, it's being replaced by a list of different movies that character has been in. So no development, no arc, no lessons are being learned, no goals are being accomplished. The list is expanding. That's it.
So there was also something you said before when we were talking pre-show about actually Aeschylus incorporated Socrates' characters in a show. So it's like there's been references forever, and this is just crossover events are part of culture. Like, what about this argument do you find fatuous?
Well, a lot, because we have like 7% of the Greek plays, so we don't know what the other 93% were like. But it goes this. What do I find fatuous about it is that I don't think these people have examined the source material, because if they did, they would probably really like it, and they probably wouldn't say that. They probably immediately realized that it's better. But I don't know. It's just because what they are defending is so shallow, and what they're comparing it to is so deep. That's basically my problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much smart stuff to say right now about it. And I didn't prepare. Sorry.
No, it's not. You didn't have to prepare, but it's just I think there is more. I don't think it is that obnoxious to say that there's probably more moral heft to Antigone than there is to the fucking MCU. Okay, it's not that much of a stretch to say.
What
right?
are the moral lessons that you learn from Black Panther?
The CIA is good.
Yeah, you learn like weird,
and charter schools are good.
Like weird authoritarianism. It's basically the premise of Black Panther. The theme of Black Panther is like it's good to be the king, right? I don't know what it's good to have power. Let's tell people what to do.
Yeah. But it's good to be a responsible tyrant.
And in specifically, the play series is called the Oresteia, but in the first, or not the first, I think it's the third part of it, in the Humanities, it's like dealing with the consequences of power and killing people in order to advance the goals of society. Like, what kind of consequences are there if you sacrifice someone in order to go fight and sack Troy? And turns out there's big consequences. Agamemnon is killed by his wife because Agamemnon killed his daughter, and then Agamemnon's wife is killed by Agamemnon's son in revenge, and so there's this whole sequence of blood revenge killings. And ultimately, the gods have to get involved to stop it. And so they have a trial, and they put Agamemnon's son on trial. And that they're concerned about him getting a fair trial, so they do a change of venue to Athens. No. I'm kidding. Anyway, they go, and then it's like, going into deep shit. And in Black Panther, it's not comparable.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think because that's generally a part of the argument you hear. there was a clip that was making the rounds earlier from a cartoon called Close Enough, where the characters were saying, actually, superhero movies are modern mythology, and just participating in the general... And you hear this argument a lot from, like, the Marvel devotees that want to insist that their shit is super spiritually important. And as you said before, there's just less going on in them than in the classics, you know? And also, they belong to somebody. The classics don't belong to anybody, really. No one's making money off of the translators are making money, I guess. We stopped the big translation racket.
The Greek playwrights didn't all work for the one big company.
Yeah, there wasn't Disney-copitus.
And they weren't doing it when they did write these plays, it did not, like, make them bajillions of dollars. They had a reason for doing it, and that's an extremely interesting part. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell you the reason, but that would be a fascinating thing to examine. I'm sure there's many PhD topics on the motivations of the actual authors.
Yeah. If anything, the Marvel movies are not like that mythology. The thing that in our modern culture that's closest to that is fan fiction, which is taking these archetypes and freely and in a cultural dialogue with other people doing it freely, advancing those cultural archetypes together in, a community, which takes on, weird formats sometimes. But as we've seen, that fan fiction culture has also informed the producer's understanding of how to exploit people. Because that fan fiction culture contributed to their understanding of people really like it when their archetypes from different IP come over and fuck.
Yeah. Although there's no more sex in movies anymore, according to Ross Douthat of the New York Times.
There's no more sexy movies?
There's no more sex in movies. He's like, remember Julia Roberts? Man.
Man, what a dame. She had legs from here to yaya. There's no more sexy movie. What about John Wick?
John Boring. I call it John Boring.
Okay, so we have established... So here's the second part. Just like in that last 20 minutes, we've just gone over why references are important to us, especially now in our accelerated culture, and, why producers are cynically exploiting that. Where it's a natural part of language, but it is being more cynically manipulated than it ever has before for great lucrative gain in this sort of compressed, collapsing, late capitalist world of intellectual property. So what I want to do now is what I think the metatextual element of Kingdom Hearts is very funny, because as I was saying in the beginning, the story of Kingdom Hearts actually references the demise of culture at the hands of this bridging of IP. And I think it is also... The first Kingdom Hearts game is actually great. It is... The reason why I'm obsessed with it is because I think the first Kingdom Hearts game is like a top 10 game for me. It's like a perfect execution of gameplay, and like its graphics at the time were just astonishing, and they still hold up today. This beautiful style it adopted, and it meshes these worlds together improbably well. And the story behind it is actually succeeds in sort of being this a metaphorical arc for like the end of childhood and the succumbing to experience. And I think that's why it also resonates with people. And so, have you ever played the first Kingdom Hearts game, Steven?
Only the amount I saw you play until you passed out from bong hits and jerk chicken.
Hell yeah, that's me. That's me to a T. You start out as Sora on the Destiny Islands, and you wish to get off your small little world, and your rival is this firebrand named Riku, and you have a love interest with a blank personality named Kairi. Also on the island, you are introduced to 3 other inhabitants who are all characters from various Final Fantasy properties as children. So already the game introduces you to the fact that, oh yeah, you're going to recognize some shit, and it's going to be great. And not only do you get to... These characters are rendered as children, and you get to fight them. And it's very satisfying because they're using attacks that you also recognize. So it sort of keeps adding reference upon reference to reinforce that little dopamine hit. So your rivalry with Riku escalates, and essentially you're trying to win the heart of Kairi, but really your character's rivalry is the driving force of the series, and you're trying to win the heart of each other. Riku succumbs to darkness. You, Sora, the protagonist, you are pure and noble, and you are the creator, you are the guy that gets the light. You run into a guy in a hood one day, and he says, oh, the door between worlds has opened.
Wait, do the voice,
and
though.
Eventually,
it's a great voice actor, isn't it? Isn't it a great voice actor?
I believe that the guy in the original game is Billy Zane from Titanic fame. And the door between worlds has opened. There's some great shit in it. There's some great, also epic dialogue. And, of course, Sora in the original game is voiced by Haley Joel Osment. Kingdom Hearts is light. And Riku's voiced by David Gallagher from Seventh Heaven. It's a very funny voice cast.
Wait. Not the dad from Seventh Heaven.
No, not the dad.
Oh, okay.
No,
Good.
the blonde-haired, thick-eyebrowed
Yeah, we put
son
Haley Joel Osment and the dad from Seventh Heaven in the recording booth for 12 hours. It's a crossover thing.
No. So the door between worlds has opened. You, Sora, fight your shadow. I should mention before, it doesn't start off on the Destiny Islands. It starts off in the cathedral as the tutorial level, and you just sort of, it teaches you the game. All that really matters is you're in sort of a dream cathedral world. So eventually you get sucked into this place called Traverse Town after the door to darkness is opened. Your friend Riku has also been sucked in. He has invited you towards the darkness, and Kairi, your love interest, has also been sucked in. So the motivation of the game now, very simple plot: find, rescue your friends, get back to your home, right? That's like very simple plot. Eventually, the Kingdom Hearts games are famous for becoming horribly convoluted, but the first game actually makes sense.
Kingdom Hearts, Degrassi.
Yeah, Degrassi. Actually, very much so. Because you do meet a bunch of hot, troubled teens in Traverse Town, who are all from various Final Fantasy games. And you're wandering around this empty town. You discover that these beings called the Heartless have invaded worlds and destroyed them and are taking people's hearts. Hearts is basically used as a metaphor for soul or sort of spiritual essence of a person.
In a video game, no less.
Yeah. And so you even see in an opening scene that Heartless steals a person's heart and the heart goes off somewhere. We later find out that a lot of these Heartless are being controlled by the main antagonist of the game, Ansem, in order to gather hearts, in order to summon this great source of power called Kingdom Hearts, which is kind of like heaven, basically. It's kind of like this afterlife that's also like this source of power that allows you to remake the universe. But that comes much later. So you're traveling around in this town for a while, and eventually you bump into... At first, you think they're enemies, but it turns out these guys, they're your compadres. They're Donald and Goofy. You run into Donald and Goofy, and you beat up a big guard armor. And eventually you realize that you have similar missions. Donald and Goofy are looking for King Mickey, who has disappeared. You're looking for Riku and Kairi. The bridge between worlds has opened, and you need to explore the bridge between worlds. You learn that actually the fact that the bridge between worlds has opened is toxic to the universe at large, from Squall and Yuffie and Aeris, and that, your goal as the protagonist is to close these worlds off from each other. That's literally your goal in the first game. And it's expressed by the fact that your main weapon is a gigantic fucking key called a keyblade. And so what you literally do in these worlds is seal them by locking the keyholes of these worlds. You get in through these keyholes. So the point of the game is that you need to keep intellectual property separated or everything will be destroyed.
Yeah.
And in order to, the paradoxical nature of the game is you want to keep exploring and find all your Disney friends and you keep all the intellectual property together in the same franchise, which is why after the first game ends very satisfyingly, they spin it out and try to explain everything in it, and it turns into a total fucking mess. So the next part of the game, you go through a bunch of Disney worlds. They're uninteresting. You're largely just replaying the plots of the movies. But I do want to pay special mention to the fact that James Woods is featured in all these games as Hades. And he doesn't phone it in, which is great. It's like James Woods giving 100% in the fucking Kingdom Hearts games, which is just... You gotta love that crank. You gotta love that sexually harassing crank.
For him, it's all the same. He's just another day in the studio for him. I mean...
Yeah. Well, they got me doing my thing. I'm not Jewish, but I pretend I'm a Jewish guy, and that's Hades. That's his character for Hades.
Yeah.
Eventually, you get to a place called Hollow Bastion. Donald and Goofy abandon you because Riku, your rival, it turns out, has been working with the bad guy, and he's got all of this darkness power. He says, no, I'm actually following big corporate Ansem, and he's showing me that the chaotic energy of darkness actually can give you power, And so the Keyblade actually chooses Riku because he has like this intense will that sort of commands it to his side. Sora eventually, has a dark night of the soul, but realizes that, friendship is the key eventually, and regains the Keyblade for the power of light. He has a big battle with Ansem, the main villain, who is trying to utilize the darkness in order to summon Kingdom Hearts. And guess what? He wins, while also retaining the friendship of Goofy and Donald. It ends with the worlds being sealed. You eventually find Kairi, you rescue Kairi, and you rescue her heart. You give it back to each other. You seal off the worlds, and in the end of the game, you're still stuck with Donald and Goofy, but you're very much separated from the world at large. And it's really uncertain where you're going. And that's what's nice about the first game, is its plot is very open-ended, and it doesn't explain anything really about the metaphysical universe. And as a result, it has this very cool, dreamlike, childlike, dreamlike quality that was totally obliterated in other games that have this annoying, over-explainy anime quality to them. And but I think it's interesting that the metatextual element of the first Kingdom Hearts game is that we are creating this property that is only successful because we want to create it because it's combining elements, but the message of the game is don't combine the elements. I think that's very funny.
It's weird. It's weird that it's Final Fantasy. I feel like why not Dragon Quest? Like Dragon Quest they're up to 9 on Dragon Quest. It's pretty popular.
I think because also Final Fantasy VII was the biggest JRPG ever at that time, and definitely had the most recognizable characters in the West for sure. And they were trying to hit as broad a market as possible, which included not just Japan, where Dragon Quest was primarily popular, but the West as well. Also, Square at that time was still just Squaresoft. It hadn't merged with Enix, who controlled the Dragon Quest series. After it merged with Enix, then it would have been able to do that. But yeah, still in 2004, Square was just Square.
Oh, so they were... okay, I didn't even know Dragon Quest is now in the same company.
2002. I think Kingdom Hearts is even earlier. Yeah, 2002.
So the company that made Kingdom Hearts bought the company that made Dragon Quest?
They didn't. They merged.
Oh, they merged?
They didn't buy... Yeah. Dragon Quest was made by Enix.
Well, when there's a merge, generally there's a top and a bottom.
Well, if that were the case, it's likely Square topped Enix, because Enix was sort of at the end of their rope. While Final Fantasy was soaring in that era.
They call it a merge, but one of the corporations wins.
Yeah, some of the teams get fired for redundancy. It wasn't the Square teams that were fired for redundancy. Let's put it that way. Steven's holding his Psycho Kitty Ramona, who only loves
by
him.
the mics, so she wants to fuck the show up. There she goes.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny about the Kingdom Hearts games is that the first game wraps up so well. People love it. It's still generally regarded as a classic, even amongst people that hate the series as a whole. They begrudgingly admit that the first game is a little bit of a masterpiece.
Hey, at least they didn't have to invent a soap for their own fans, like that fighting game on the Nintendo. Did you see that?
Oh, Super Smash Bros. They had to enforce soap rules.
Well, Smash Brothers not only enforced soap rules, they had to made their own Super Smash soap to try to get the Super Smash players to use soap and shower.
The Super Smash community has a real problem with
odor,
hygiene, and pedophilia.
Well, I don't know about that part. But I remember when we were, you and I, we were on the way to the store to buy the Kingdom Hearts, because we had to go buy Kingdom Hearts. You talked to the lady about the lady at the counter about how bad the Super Smash players smelled, and she was like, "Oh yeah, it's a real big problem. That's a big problem."
Yeah. Yeah, it's an absolute thing. It's an absolute thing. But you get that with any sort of community that attracts a certain type of nerd. It's a thing in the Magic the Gathering community as well.
Huh.
Which,
well,
not to insult Magic players, but there are a lot of smelly Magic boys out there. There's a lot of smelly Magic buddies out there.
The fans of the video games I like all smell wonderful.
Valheim fans.
Yes. Where were we? I keep disrupting.
I was just... I'm at the end of my points right now, but I was relating the plot of Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yeah.
And I just want to do a quick note on the future Kingdom Hearts games. They suck hard, compared to Kingdom Hearts 1. Because they really dropped the ball in terms of writing, which was actually turned out to be a pretty important part of the first game. And something that people really liked about it was the fact that its story and the way that it was conveyed was actually pretty good and satisfying. And the second and third games dropped the ball by sort of, defeating the narrative of the first game, which was, we got to keep opening up the worlds again, even though it's destroying the universe at large, because... Yeah. Ansem keeps coming back in different forms, and we gotta, keep them open again. Oh, darn. They keep dragging us back.
Yeah.
So it erases the power of the original narrative and sort of the tragedy that the point of the first game is that you have to be separated from your friends after you rescue them. Which is, nice and melancholic.
We have a good opportunity for some crossover with the new Matrix stuff coming out. Hopefully, I'm hoping they put the Joker in the new Matrix. Hope the new Matrix is Joker-fied.
I mean, they could easily fucking do that because, the Matrix, it takes place in a computer world,
yeah.
So it's the Matrix has programmed some new agents for us. What are they going to be? Surprise! They're all Jokers.
Well. It would be, we should contact the Wachowski sisters about the plot for the Matrixes, because we could probably just take the Kingdom Hearts plot and repackage it and have a pretty darn good Matrix movie.
Well, okay, which brings us into the fourth and final part of this episode, where we speculate on the future of IP consolidation.
Yeah.
Because I think this is going to become... This isn't ending. This Space Jam, Ready Player One shit, it's going to persist. And it's going to... And, the other thing that I mentioned before, which I shouldn't gloss over, is Fortnite. Fortnite has all these skins from different properties that come together into this game, where the point is you have this conspicuous consumption of these properties. So, and Fortnite is I think it's still the biggest video game in the world, right?
What you mean, has the most players at the same time?
The most active player base, yeah.
I think so. So.
It's probably like League of Legends or CSGO or something I'm not thinking of.
Well, no. Minecraft is probably close, and then Fortnite. Minecraft's pretty big still.
Yeah.
Minecraft isn't.
But
I would love to do. I wish we could get someone who knows a lot about Minecraft, because Minecraft is amazing.
Yeah, it's an interesting world. I would like to also talk about the contrast between the beauty and wonder of, and sort of the wholesomeness of the Minecraft world with its horrible creator, Marcus Notch Person. Yeah. I mean, he can't claim a lot of credit for what Minecraft eventually became, because his beta was pretty preliminary, and like the other developers at Mojang have like a lot to do with why that game was so well received. But it's just funny that,
well, he hates his life now, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's so fucking... Yeah, Marcus Person might be the person that irritates me the most, because you created something beautiful that everybody loves and connects people, and you just let it make you become bitter and awful. And that's such a waste. I would be so ecstatic if I fucking created Minecraft. I would be, and had billions of dollars, I would be like building homeless shelters and giving out hoagies, and I would be like so happy.
You'd be
and
giving
this guy
out
just
hoagies?
Yeah. Just throwing them.
Well, I don't know that much about that guy, other than he was like, man, it sucks having $4 billion. Nothing sucks quite as much. But in Minecraft, you can build a virtual computer, like a full virtual computer, and it is like extremely cool. So you can build an 8-bit computer, functional. You can build a graphing calculator out of something called redstone, which is basically in-game logic switches. Minecraft is extremely cool. They should teach it in schools.
But I also think Minecraft is... Has Minecraft ever IP combined? They do teach Minecraft in school, actually. I saw this fucking crazy... It wasn't that crazy. It seemed natural, but I didn't know what to make of it. It was this Minecraft introduction to, like, Lakota tribes, and it was like, learn about the Lakota in Minecraft. And there were these blocky Lakota people just paddling around with blocky teepees.
I'm trying to see. They might have done an IP combine. There's something called Minecraft Dungeons that I think is a DLC.
Yeah, but did they put like Wolverine in it or some shit like that? I mean, Minecraft Steve is in Super Smash Bros., but to my knowledge, Minecraft has not done like what Fortnite has done, where they actually get a bunch of like licensed brands and put it smack dab in the middle of the game. I think Minecraft weirdly do have like an image of wholesomeness to keep up, which means they can't really resort to in-game advertising like other more crass games like Fortnite can. I say crass a lot. I've used the word crass a lot this episode, but it's an apt adjective. I stand by it.
I'm looking up the most recent Minecraft DLC was Minecraft Dungeons, and I don't think it has any crossover. But it's, now that they're owned by Microsoft, it's only a matter of time before you see the Master Chief in Minecraft. Seriously, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, that is true. It will be cross-brand synergy. Wonderful cross-brand synergy. But cross-brand synergy, not just as this sort of easily noticed vacant marketing ploy, as it was in the past, like with the original Space Jam, but crossover properties given the heft and cathedral Nick Land worship of Kingdom Hearts. So, do you think we're going to get like adaptations of Macbeth with like the Iron Giant as Macbeth?
No, there is a new, you see the Coen Brothers announcement?
Yeah, well, it's just the one Cohen. It's just Joel Cohen
What?
for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's Ethan?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Why not? Where?
Maybe they're having a fight.
They're having like a Macbeth-style fight. So.
Yeah. Having a brother battle.
That's
a bro
no good,
battle.
man. There's something going. Oh no.
Trouble in Paradise. Yeah, they have a Denzel Washington playing Macbeth, and they have a cast of largely black actors, which is interesting for the Coen because they're not known for casting many black people in their movies.
Yeah.
So better late than never, and it's Macbeth, my favorite Shakespeare.
Wow.
Great story.
That's one I haven't ever been able to tackle.
Really?
Yep.
It's the best one. It's got ghosts and witches and prophecies and murder and schizophrenia.
I'm going to say it's not the best one because I haven't read it.
Here you go. What's your favorite Shakespeare?
I probably Hamlet.
Okay, there you go.
I like that
Classic.
one. I like that one a lot.
It's the ultimate uncle play.
I also, of course, like Henry V.
Yeah.
That one's fun. You beat the French.
He beat him.
Yeah. That's a good moment. That's such a good moment when you finally beat the French. After 100 years of war, you beat them. Because there's
like when Sora beat Ansem.
Yeah, they're too stupid to know that it's all muddy.
The French didn't understand that Kingdom Hearts was light.
Or that the rain made the ground muddy.
That would be funny if, like, the executives at Disney adopt Henry V, and we've noticed we get more eyeball retention if we just put a bunch of our IP in the background, and in the background you see a bunch of Clockwork Orange guys, and the Henry V just thrusting. The Iron Giant, who for some reason, the Iron Giant is weird because it's this little known property that for some reason achieved prominence in the trailers of both Ready Player One and this new Space Jam Legacy movie. Oh, and the other thing that I want to talk about the Space Jam Legacy trailer is it has little worlds exactly like Kingdom Hearts in it, showing the little different pieces of IP. It's like almost ripping off the whole Kingdom Hearts conception of like the shared universe IP completely.
Yeah,
which is very funny, and it's straight up acknowledging
and
it.
There's a Tron ripoff too.
Yes.
So what's the
Tron features in the second Kingdom Hearts game?
What?
Tron is in Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, God, stop. You can't put.
I fight for the user.
You can't put a program like a program like that into a video game. Yeah, I love Tron. Tron's one of my favorite IPs.
It's good IPs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also something that's been cynically talking about art as IP or properties, but that's the way it's viewed. You know, when you're doing these big orgiastic crossover events, that's what you have. These things aren't. These things lose the sort of spiritual undertone of art and become just commodities to be traded. They become blocky objects. They don't become sort of ethereal, wispy stories that we can relate our lives to and maybe feel some sense of profundity in this confusing universe. No, they become widgets.
And
nothing wrong with that, though.
I'm thinking of like the David Lynch thing where David Lynch doesn't want to address John Hamm and the lady that plays Peggy as anything but their characters from Mad Men. Insisting on the crossover. It's happening now to me, to us.
Reality has crossed over with my favorite TV show. It has a really great mise-en-scène. Now, Don, you shouldn't treat women that way. Even though I can sympathize, I certainly had my times.
Remember when Don Draper goes to meditate and everyone at home is like, oh, he's going to think of Coke. He's going to think of Coke. And then they got an entire nation cheering on the creation of Coke. Oh, he did it!
Yeah.
He invented Coca-Cola!
I like to teach, but that's a perfect example. Infusing spiritualism and New Age mentality with pop culture, with a pop culture reference. It's the dopamine hits because you recognize the Coke logo, but it's also tied to your understanding of a shared cultural language. I'd like to buy the world. It's all part of it. The marriage of spiritual heft.
Who is the
to
I?
Pop culture reference.
And I'd like to buy the world of Coke. Who is the I?
Presumably the multiracial actors they hired for that commercial.
Oh, it's just those people?
Those particular actors, yeah.
It's not like our collective consciousness?
I don't think it's the cosmic eye.
I think it is.
Maybe it is.
It's the cosmic eye. The eye on the top of the pyramid would like to buy us all a Coke. Because it's addictive.
It's very scale. Teaching the world to sing in perfect harmony. The idea of 7 billion people all singing at the same time. That would be like a good science fiction plot. Like everyone just started singing a Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Well, not
perfect, word for word.
Not to be a downer, but that could never happen.
Oh.
if all 7 billion of us stopped what we were doing to sing a song, it would be a catastrophe. Bridges would
9/11.
Bridges would fail. Like every airplane would fall out of the sky. So many surgeons would just rip open their patients and out of absent-mindedness because they're singing "I'd like to buy the world a Coke." It's really a terrible and frightening idea of having all 7 billion of us stop and sing, and I hope it never comes to pass.
Yeah. Maybe that's how we all die. Maybe that is the melancholia scenario. The singing madness.
I thought melancholia was about what was the world ending from? Big
meteor.
Oh,
big planets crashing into the world. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Another planet's crashing into Earth.
Yeah.
And that movie, Melancholia, is Lars von Trier. Is he listened to the REM song "It's the End of the World as We Know It" and I feel fine, and was like, I can do better.
I do not feel fine. I feel melancholy.
That guy's a creep.
Well, I want to watch his Nazi movie about the people in Austria or whatever.
I want to see the Lars von Trier combined cinematic universe.
Yeah.
It's Dogville and Breaking the Waves and Dancer in the Dark, and they're all together and they're fighting like Super Smash Bros.
Harmony Korine should do a crossover movie.
Like Gummo plus Spring Breakers plus Beach Bum.
Yeah.
I would love that. Yeah, see, exactly. I'm pitching these to myself, and
all my
they sound very
freaks.
amusing to me. These are this is the future of IP consolidation, the collapsing nature. But also to tie it to a greater thing is before on this podcast, I think I've referred to QAnon as the Kingdom Hearts of conspiracy theories.
Ooh.
Because what it is the consolidation of every other conspiracy theory. It has JFK. It has, elements of deep state shit. It has all the Alex Jones shit. It has, I'm sure the moon landing's a part of it. And it combines all of them because it has this unified deep state theory from which all other conspiracy theories emanate. I'm sure 9/11 conspiracies are a part of QAnon as well, because it has created this space and this spiritual import to these conspiracy theories as well. Not unlike how Kingdom Hearts treats the spiritual import of combining different intellectual properties.
Yeah,
people like to combine the different worlds of the Unabomber of Ruby Ridge and 9/11 into one unified Kingdom Hearts of conspiracies.
I think that these people who are like, oh, it's mythology, would have a better comparison in the forced Christianization of pagan countries, because that is the true crossover events were happening when every holiday. Easter is a crossover event. Okay, it's combining a pagan holiday with a Christian holiday. Christmas, crossover event.
There you go.
And in order to get the pagans to accept Christianity, they had to be like, well, you guys can show up, sort of. You guys kind of show up in our world, in our universe. It's the Jesus cinematic universe, and Thor is like, he's like kind of under that. It's like a hierarchy. He just kind of comes in underneath that.
Yeah, he's just skates in sometimes, hello, I'm Thor, and now I'm going in the background again.
Well, my question, why doesn't the MCU have Jesus in it? He's kind of the ultimate superhero.
Yeah. Turns out Jesus was a mutant. Aw, yeah.
He's an X-Men.
Yeah, Jesus is an X-Men.
I mean, this is just a South Park. That's the Super Friends, right?
Yeah, in which they depicted Mohammed, but didn't get in trouble for some reason.
Oh no, they did. They got in trouble for that. I mean,
no, they never got in trouble.
Well, Comedy Central pulled that episode. You can't get that episode.
Yeah, eventually they got in trouble but at the time it aired, and for years after, in between that and like the Dutch magazine and Charlie Hebdo,
yeah, well, that's because
nobody cared.
At that time, America was in Iraq and anti-Muslim, extremely. That's why they didn't get in trouble, because the liberal media was anti-Muslim.
I guess you're right, yeah.
They were pro-Iraq war and anti-Muslim. So you wouldn't get the New York Times trying to cancel South Park for, like they do try to cancel Charlie Hebdo.
Yeah.
Like the New York Times is like, look at this garbage, but they said nothing when South Park did it.
Look, I'm not saying the Charlie Hebdo guys deserved it, but
no, they don't. They didn't deserve it. We believe in the freedom of expression. You can make fun
kidding, of course.
You should be allowed to make...
Of course, the Charlie Hebdo guys.
But I mean, that's...
But I think Charlie Hebdo is complicated by the fact that France is actually a very anti-Islamic country and does systemically discriminate against Muslims. So, it's rough. But of course, nobody is seriously saying the Charlie Hebdo's guys deserve to lose their lives over printing inflammatory racist cartoons.
Yeah, no, but they shouldn't. You shouldn't. If you're not trying to offend, if you don't want to try to offend people to the point of someone killing you, you shouldn't do that. Because
in a way, that's like what every satirist wants, right? To be so edgy that somebody kills them over a joke.
Yeah, I guess
that's how you know.
I guess they were right. Wow, good one, guys.
Yeah, you did it. Like, I don't think I am. Because there was also that rush after they were assassinated to say Charlie Hebdo are heroes.
Yeah, je suis Charlie. Je suis Charlie, right?
Yeah. It's like if they assassinated the editors of the Babylon Bee. And we just said, I am the Babylon Bee.
I am the Babylon Bee.
Yeah, some astroturfed conservative humor newspaper.
This is the first recorded court case of trying someone for murder. This individual hacked into the Babylon Bee and wrote a fake article. And in the fake article, it had a cartoon image of the Prophet Muhammad. And then the entire, all the employees of the Babylon Bee were murdered, and the hacker is being charged.
Well, it happened on a company computer, so, the rule that corporations take responsibility for their employees. No, that doesn't work.
Well, it's actually Babylon Bee's fault for not running a secure server, so...
Exactly. Yeah. They're the ones that should get sued. They should get gawkered. I blame the Babylon Bee for everything.
They're pretty lame. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they're not a good... Out of the many, many humor rags on the internet, they're very D tier. Very F tier. I like the Hard Times. The Hard Times is funny.
With Jeremy Kaplowitz?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that guy is one of the guys involved. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
They're good.
But yeah, the future of IP consolidation is basically things are only going to get crazier from here on end, and this sort of the idea of these disparate worlds coming together and collapsing is informing culture at large, and not just in media, but our idea of how everything connects to each other. through this sort of Jimmy Garrison-like connection of patterns together. The creation of these interrelated IP worlds and sort of the Pepe Silva conspiracy theory connection mindset are intimately connected. And I think that is what we will see in the future of this IP consolidation, the further marriage of all of these worlds together in this conspiratorial, paranoid, cyberpunky framework.
I mean, yeah, you could do something pretty cool with it if you wanted to. Like, there's a QAnon-style conspiracy among all the different IPs, and, like, your character, if you're the main character or the protagonist, is, like, constantly being foiled by new characters who are seemingly involved in a dark plot.
Yeah, it's Ready Player One, but it's a thriller, and the Iron Giant keeps killing me.
It is. The Iron Giant's kind of a nice movie. It came out right when, I think it came out right around DVDs coming out, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's why it was big.
Came in 98.
Yeah. DVDs were coming out right then, so people were like, whoa, you can put a movie on a CD?
Yeah. Well, we had laser discs at that point as well.
Okay, Canada man, we didn't have that here.
The Kingdom Hearts-ification of all media. This is my theory. What it was. So that let's just review what we've gone through so far. So, Kingdom Hearts represents a specific watershed moment in the marriage of this sort of spiritual ideology to these IP crossover events. This sort of emotional heft that had previously not been found in examples of the genre. And the reason why this is because, two, our culture becomes more referential and more metastasized in its reference. This sort of cancerous overgrowth of reference just overcoming each other. And people, moneymakers recognize that, producers recognize that, and seek to reproduce that in our media, which is how we get these massive IP crossover events. 3, the plot of the Kingdom Hearts game, the initial Kingdom Hearts game, metatextually warns us of the encroaching destruction of our media landscape as a result of this crossover. And the future of IP consolidation, 4, this sort of Kingdom Hearts-ification of media also spills out into the real world, into the Kingdom Hearts-ification of conspiracy and reality at large, where we combine our different conspiracy worlds together into one shared plane of cultural consciousness, but sort of dilute the truth or any special meaning that they originally had. So that is my theory, the Kingdom Hearts-ification of all media. What do you think, Stephen?
I think everybody needs to go to houseofdecline.com and check out the comics there. You can click on a button that says comics. It's www.houseofdecline.com. That's HAUS, houseofdecline.com. And then you will click on the button for comics, check out some wonderful comics, and tune in next week, every week, for more of your favorite boys at House of Decline. And we promise no crossovers, no guests from here on out.
No more guests. No more brand synergy.
Nothing. It's gonna be. We are a closed universe now. No one in, no one out.
Ideologically against guests.
Well, yeah, podcasts are kind of like the podcast chapos going on each other's podcasts.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great example that I didn't even think of. The Leftosphere universe, where you have these, and I'm guilty of it too, of having like these images of my parasocial buddies, and I like it when they go on other people's podcasts. Yep. It's like, what is this? A crossover event? I love it. These worlds are colliding, And that is sort of the appeal of the Leftosphere podcast world.
Yeah. We're your friends inside your phone.
We're your friends inside your phone, and sometimes we interact. and you're Sora, and you interact with all of us.
Yeah.
You're what's keeping us all together.
Thank you so much, listener. We love you.